It's time for this week's difficult conversation. Tony Stowell has accused a care home of putting his mother on end-of-life care without his family's consent during the COVID pandemic. Now, according to the family, Antonia Stowell suffered from dementia and didn't have the mental capacity to make such a decision. Her son claims he wouldn't have opted for end-of-life care if the question was put to him. Now, 2 years after her death, Tony requested to see his mother's hospital records, which he claimed stated Antonia had suspected pneumonia and was prescribed end-of-life drugs. Now, he says the decision was made 2 days prior to when he found out. But Roseville Nursing Home in Hull has said that they provided Antonia with the best care and the processes were followed with precision. Well, I'm joined now in the studio by Tony Stowell and his lawyer, Fadi Fahad. Right, well, I'm going to start with you, Tony, really, because this is such a tragic story. Talk me through, what kind of a woman was your mother?
Beautiful.
Was she?
Inside and out, yeah. She was, she just loved life and loved everybody. And if, with her typical Spanish way, no matter who went to visit her at her home, she treated them as family, no matter who. She just loved everyone.
So she was in the care home with dementia. How long had she been at that care home? Had that been the care home she was in from the start?
No, she moved into care in 2012. Okay. She was in 6 different care homes. I think it was 6. And I saw my mum abused and neglected in all of them.
Wow. Now, obviously, you know, we're not going to name any of those care homes because we don't have enough about that. But talk me through what happened then. So the COVID pandemic hit.
Yes.
Your mother is at Roseville Care Home.
Yes.
Okay, so talk me through.
I was seeing her one day and that's when the manager, he said to me, as from tomorrow, he said, the doors are locked. And I still didn't quite understand that. Maybe my brain didn't want to accept it. I said, does that mean I can't get in to see my mum? He said, yes. Oh, my heart just sunk. It sunk at that point. And I said to him, please look after her. And he said, his words to me were, when have we ever let you down? And I said, yes, but I could always get in.
So during her time there, then, in your view, the care home was quite good with her? Because with him saying that
the best of the 6 care homes. They were good to us. They were good to Mum. Mum always looked... There was only the odd occasion where I thought, not so good. But we were under court orders at that time. The home was under a court order to look after Mum. So for me, because the court orders were in place, I believe they looked after Mum possibly more because of that. They knew the eyes were on them. I was there continuously seeing my mum. So long story short, when the doors were locked in 2020 and I couldn't get in, I said, can I come in the window visit my mum? He said, yes, of course you can. So I'd phone up and say, hi, it's Tony, I'm coming to Mum. 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. I took my 2 children with me to see their grandma. Mum always waited out the window. She looked presentable. She looked okay, but couldn't understand. She would wave me in. She wanted me to go in. Couldn't understand why I wasn't going in because we were so close, me and my mum, and I wouldn't stay outside and not go and hug her. So it was so difficult for me and heart-wrenching for me to try and get it across to my mum. I remember saying to her, Mum, I don't feel too well. I don't want to pass it to you, hoping she would understand that. It was my way of making me feel better. So bringing it down to the day, as I would always phone up, and I remember saying to the care home manager, please let me know if there's anything of my mum. He said, Tony, we always will do that. So I had that bit of hope that because I couldn't get in, they would look after Mum. So as I say, I phoned up on the 17th of May. I had no idea of anything. No idea. I was taking my dog for a walk early morning. I got my mobile phone out, as I always did, and phoned the care home. I said, hi, it's only Tony. I said, how's my mum? Not suspecting anything. And she said to me, oh, Tony, can we call you back in 5 minutes? I thought, yeah, of course you can. Must be busy. It's early morning. So I carry on walking. My phone rings. I pick it up. And the nurse manager who was on that day, on duty that morning, she said to me, and it was how I remember it was very matter of fact. It was like somebody had sledgehammered me. I died that moment. I literally died that moment, and I've not come back. She said to me, Tony, it was like this. How I'm saying it was how she said it to me, as if I should have known. Tony, your mum's end of life. Oh, I fell to the floor. I fell to the floor.
What does that mean when they say end of life? What does that mean in terms of the medicines, or what does that actually equate to?
Right, at that moment in time when she said that to me, I had no idea. All my brain took in was, my mum's dying. It's all I could sort of get into my head. And I didn't know what to do. The world stopped for me. Everything stopped. And then I had to get to the care home to see my mum. So I said, please inform the family. So I get to the care home. We couldn't get in. Remember, I didn't know my mum was even ill. I had no idea she was poorly. Because under the contract of the Court of Protection, they were supposed to tell if mum had a headache, if she had a fever, anything. Never mind an end of life. We weren't told. So as I got there, again, long story short, to condense it, they invited us in to watch our mum die. Even telling you now, it's heartbreaking.
So sorry to hear that. You're obviously very, very close to her.
To go and watch your mum die when you don't even know she was even ill.
So what happened then when you realised that this is what's happening?
I remember shouting, I said, get my mum an ambulance now. And they debated it. They debated it, and the whole family was outside then. And I said, get an ambulance now. Now. And they started debating. And I said, look, stop the debate. Now. So the ambulance came, went into my mum, and I saw her wheeled out in the stretcher. First time I'd seen her close up. And then the paramedics spoke to me and he said, we've got your mum settled. She's with us. I said, please look after her. And as they put her in the back of the ambulance, they then said, we need a contact number of the family. And everyone just said, Anthony. So they came to me, I gave them my number, and in the afternoon, I can't remember what time it was, because, as I say, the world just stopped for me. I got a call from the hospital, the nurse who was looking after my mum, and she said, I think you should come in. So I get down and I go in, and I say, luckily, I knew the nurse who was looking after my mum. She said to me, come in, come and see your mum, come in. He said, but you have to put the PPE on. So I put it on to be obliging. I put the mask on, the gloves, whatever else on. The curtain went across and I saw my mum. You know, that image is there. It haunts me. I'm having EMDR treatment and everything because of what they've done. And I saw her. And I went to her and I took the mask off, the gloves, everything. And I remember the nurse saying to me, Tony, I said, never mind that. I said, it's my mum. And I went and I picked her up, and a hen. And I kissed her. I don't know how many times. And I said, I love you, Mum. And her eyes flickered. And the nurse said, she can hear you. I said, of course she can. And then they took her to the ward. She said, come with us to the ward. So I walk with my mum, I go in the lift, I hold her hand all the way. And the nurse said to me, you can't go into the ward. Can you please wait there? I said, of course I will. I said, please look after her. And the nurse come back to me and she said to me that, remember the first thing she said, I've explained this to Fadi and everything, hence why they've been superb with me. The nurse said to me, Tony, can I ask you a question? I said, ask me anything you want. She said, who put your mum on end of life? And I said, I don't know. I said, when I phoned up in the morning, that's what they told me. She said, your mum isn't end of life. And then I had a glimmer of hope. Like I'd been reborn. I said, oh, God. She said, we're treating her. She said, this is why you can't come in. So I accepted that. That was like the best words I'd ever heard in my life. I said, I don't mind not going in as long as you're treating her. She said, we just can't understand who's put her on end of life. So my point here is, and as Fadi and Gulbenkian and Donian have supported this, my mum's been put on end of life days before with end of life drugs. I never knew any of this. So I get her to the hospital 3 days later after being given these medications, and they're telling me she's not end of life. The next morning I get the call. My mum's gone. I went with her. But I've got a family to be there for. I'm a dad. I'm a partner. But my life, I died that day. I died.
I'm so sorry to hear that. I mean, the only good thing there is that you got to hug her.
Oh.
Because, I mean, you know, there was the whole COVID thing and people weren't even allowed to touch their loved ones, so you got that.
Oh, I did it. I just did it.
And you did the right thing.
I picked her. I've got that with me forever.
You've got that.
It keeps me smiling, that.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask Fadi now. Is that the right procedure, what happened there in Tony's case, where it would appear that suddenly his mum was on end of life without any real consultation?
That's not the correct procedure. The law is quite clear on this, is that usually when an end-of-life decision has been made, which it in itself does have a role in the sort of care landscape, because sometimes you have people with conditions that are irreversible. Sometimes it's best to put people on a pathway where they can die with dignity without having the treatment, as treatment could be distressing sometimes. But when that decision is made, it's always, the law's clear that it should be made with consultation. So the patient should be consulted, and there should be this ongoing dialogue as to what's in the best interests of the patient. And if the patient lacks mental capacity, then it will be, there'll usually be consultation with family as to what the appropriate pathway is. In this case, seemingly, from what we can look at with the records we have, and we're only looking at one side of the coin, it should be, that's fair to say, because the care home will still need to respond on this. But from what we can see, records show that a decision was made on the 15th of May, 2020, so on a Friday. Bear in mind, Mr. Stowell was there on the Friday, always in contact with the home, and he wasn't told on that day.
Right.
The following day, which was the 16th, which was a Saturday, again, Mr. Stowell was in contact, and again, he wasn't told anything. It was only when he called on the 17th that he was then told that she's on end of life.
And you've seen these records as well, so you're...
These records, from what we can see, from that side of the coin, it says a decision was made on the 15th. And of course, such decisions typically are not made in a vacuum instantly. So that's when the decision was recorded. It could have been contemplated before the 15th, which was the Friday. It could have been contemplated on the Thursday or the Wednesday. We don't know. But when it was eventually communicated, and Antonia was admitted to hospital on that Sunday, she was put on a ventilator and treated.
She was, when I say ventilator, it wasn't a ventilator as such, it was just the oxygen mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she was given some sort of treatment and responded initially quite well to it, but didn't survive. But the point is, had consultation been given in the first instance, she may have had the best part of 48 to 72 hours of treatment. And who is to say that
couldn't have changed.
That could have been pivotal, that could have been vital, and it could have been the difference between life and death.
Well, listen, we are running out of time, so we've got about 30 seconds to talk to me. That Antonia's Law is something that you're... Can you tell me briefly what that is?
It's now named Antonia's Law after my mum. Yeah. It's for families, if they wish to do so, at their own expense, to place a camera in their relative's room. So it's not intruding on any other privacy whatsoever, and it's controlled only by the family member.
Listen, and the fight is still on. You are still pushing for this.
I'm hoping now I'm going to get the whole of Britain behind me now. This would have saved my mum. When I say saved, I would have known what really happened.
Well, listen, Tony, thank you very much
Thank
for sharing
you,
that
Nana.
story. Really appreciate that, Fadi. Thank you also. Much appreciated. Well, of course, we requested a statement from a Rose Villa care home, and this is what they said in their response. Mrs. Antonia Stowell, a former and much-loved resident of Rose Villa care home, sadly died at Hull Royal Infirmary on the 18th May 2020. We fully understand the feeling of loss and grief her family and friends will have felt at her loss, and our sympathies are with them. Whilst a resident at Rose Villa care home and before her hospitalisation with COVID and other health issues, we believe that our dedicated and professional team provided Antonia with the very best care under the direction of her GP, a medical team, and all proper processes in the delivery of this care was followed with precision. As has been widely publicised, the COVID pandemic has hit the social care sector extremely hard. Despite the numerous challenges this has presented, the team at Rose Villa Care Home have always strived to provide the very best care for all our residents and are fully committed to delivering the highest level of care now and into the future. Well, we also contacted the Department of Health and Social Care, and a spokesperson said the universal principles for advanced care planning set out that individuals are central to developing and agreeing plans for their future care, which may include end-of-life care, and they should decide who else is involved in the process. If a person has been assessed as lacking capacity, then any action taken must be made in their best interests. The Mental Capacity Act places a duty on the decision maker to consult those interested in the person's welfare where practical and appropriate. Clinicians should work with their patient to decide on the course of treatment, ensuring the most appropriate care for that individual is the primary consideration and according for relevant guidance. Prescribers are accountable for their prescribing decisions.